1 billion people just watched a single soccer match. Not a season, not a playoff run. One game, 90 minutes, 1 billion sets of eyes. Meanwhile, the biggest event in American sports, the Super Bowl, pulls in around 120 million viewers. That's considered massive in the US. Compared to the World Cup final, it's a rounding error. So what makes this tournament so big that it doesn't just attract viewers? It stops entire countries. That's what we're breaking down today. Let's start with the number that breaks people's brains. The World Cup final regularly pulls in over 1 billion viewers. That's more than 1 out of every 8 humans on the planet watching the exact same 90 minutes, at the exact same time. No award show does that. No election does that. Not even the moon landing pulled those numbers. Here's why. The World Cup isn't really a sports tournament. It's closer to a global identity contest. When a country plays, it's not 11 guys on a field. It's the entire nation, on the line, all at once. Think about it this way. In America, fans are loyal to teams. The Cowboys, the Lakers, the Yankees. You can switch favorite teams, move cities, change your mind. But at the World Cup, there are no teams. There are countries. And you don't choose your country the way you choose a team. That's a completely different kind of loyalty. One you're born into, not one you pick. That changes everything about how people watch. Here's a stat that sounds fake but isn't. In some countries, when their national team plays a World Cup match, crime rates actually drop. Streets empty out. Domestic flights get rescheduled around kickoff times. Shops post handwritten signs that just say closed, watching the match. Now compare that to a regular Tuesday night NFL game. Different planet entirely. So why does this happen? It comes down to one simple idea. Football is the only sport almost every country on Earth plays at a serious level. Basketball is big in a few dozen countries. American football barely exists outside the United States. But football? It's played competitively in over 200 countries. That means almost every nation has a real chance to send a team to the tournament, and a real reason to care when it happens. And here's the twist. Most beginners don't expect. The World Cup isn't just about the best teams winning. It's about the small countries getting a real shot against the giants. In 2022, Saudi Arabia beat Argentina, the eventual champions of the entire tournament, in the very first round of group play. Argentina was considered one of the best national teams on the planet. Saudi Arabia wasn't even expected to win a single match. That result didn't just make sports headlines. It made actual front-page news worldwide within hours. That's the magic ingredient most American sports don't really have. Real, shocking upsets on the biggest possible stage, with entire nations watching live. Now let's talk timing, because this is where it gets interesting. The World Cup only happens once every 4 years. Compare that to most major sports leagues, which crown a brand new champion every single season, sometimes every few months across different competitions. Imagine if the Super Bowl only happened once every 4 years instead of every year. The hype wouldn't just double. It would compound. Players would only get 2, maybe 3 real shots at winning it across their entire careers. Some of the greatest players in football history retired without ever lifting the trophy, simply because the timing never lined up. That scarcity is intentional. It's exactly what turns a tournament into something people plan years of their lives around. Here's another layer most people completely miss. The World Cup isn't owned by one country. The way the Super Bowl always happens in the US, it moves. A different host nation every single time. That means every 4 years, the tournament becomes a global spotlight on a completely different culture, city, and atmosphere. Brazil in 2014 felt nothing like Russia in 2018. Qatar in 2022 felt nothing like either of those. Each tournament becomes its own unrepeatable moment in history. And in 2026, something happens that's never happened before in the history of the competition. The tournament is hosted across 3 countries at the same time. The United States, Mexico, and Canada. The format itself is expanding too. 48 teams will compete instead of the usual 32. More countries get a shot. More underdog stories become possible. More history gets made. So let's pull this all together. You've got a sport played seriously in more countries than any other sport on Earth. A format that consistently produces real underdog stories nobody saw coming. A tournament so rare that it only happens once every 4 years, raising the stakes every single time. And a global audience so massive that one single match can outdraw the entire combined television history of most American sports leagues. That's not hype, that's just the math. Here's the one thing worth remembering before the tournament kicks off. The World Cup isn't popular because it's the most skillfully played sport in the world. It's popular because it's the only sport that lets the entire planet show up to the same room, at the same time, rooting for something bigger than a single team. And in 2026, for the first time ever, a huge part of that room is going to be right here in the United States. If this made the World Cup finally click for you, subscribe, because we're breaking down everything else you need to know before the tournament begins.